We have with us here a very interesting personality, Simanta Mohanty, a great friend of mine, and we have kept meeting at all kinds of places, including railway stations when Mamata Banerjee called a strike. And Simanta Mohanty is a senior management leader, exposure in diverse sectors, profit, non-profit, government, deep domain expertise in talent management. His representative accomplishments have been wonderful. He is a regular blogger, speaks extensively on human resources, social development. Some of his work have become benchmark. The Wipro at Home WAH in 2007, which was the first employee parent guardian engagement program, has become a benchmark. The Voice of Employee Clinic, which was created when he was at IBM, leading to better engagement in the organization. So he has simply been a highly versatile gentleman with exposure in all kinds of organizations, as we know. So he's been with Dr. Reddy's, he's been with the government over the last some years. Right. So, and the reason of the context of our meeting today is, of course, COVID-19. And since he has been in the thick and thin of this, I guess, to a great extent, Mr. Mohanty, what is your personal take? There have been contrarial views about how we have managed to cope, and I think this debate will go on and on forever. But what is your take as a highly experienced person in this area, who worked with government, worked in education, and of course had the right kind of interface? Because we are looking for people who have the right kind of interface with industry and education. We're not looking for hardcore academicians who have no ground reality. Yeah.
Rajiv, I have been observing the response to COVID, not just in India, but across the world, and through friends and relatives across the world in different countries. So let me tell you something. This is not something which has been done before. Maybe, people will talk about the Spanish flu and how people coped with, governments coped with Spanish flu, or, the bubonic plague, many centuries back. But those are not recent events from which immediate lessons can be drawn to, create a, fixed response to this kind of a crisis. It's something that hit us like a bolt from the blue.
Right.
It is something for which we do not have all the answers. In fact, today I was reading an article that some of the countries in which COVID-19 was thought to be, conquered, it has again reappeared.
Right, right.
Like, for example, Hong Kong. Hong
Sure.
Kong is a prime example. So we do not have the template to address this crisis. Governments all over the world are feeling their way into responding to this crisis. And they're trying to do their best from the knowledge that we have got. A lockdown works in some places, doesn't work in others. A lockdown can create long-term systemic damage to a country, so governments have to be careful. Essentially, it all boils down to building awareness about this illness and our personal response to it, our personal hygiene, the social distancing, the wearing of masks, the precautions that we need to take. If the battle against COVID-19 is to be fought successfully, it has to be fought at the level of the individual, not just at the level of the government. That is something I'm clear about. So it's still something we are feeling our way in. We cannot stand judgment over the
Right.
response yet. And it's still a work in progress. The only thing we are hoping and praying for is progress is made very quickly and that we succeed one way or the other.
Right. Now, getting now into education in particular, how do you think the different, if we divide our education system into, let's say, primary, secondary, higher, and maybe professional education. So we have those four quadrants. How do you think these sectors have fared comparatively? Can you give us your opinion how they have done?
Yes, of course. Rajiv, I am associated currently with an institution of higher education, the Xavier University, Bhubaneswar,
Right.
where we're trying to build the School of Government and Public Affairs at XUB.
Mhm.
And I have had a lifelong interest in school education. I was a quiz master at a point in time. I have a
Right.
wife who's a principal of a school. So
Right.
I
Right.
know schools and I'm following schools in this, fairly intensively. Let me tell you, I'm filled with admiration. I'm filled with admiration uh, for, for what educators are doing at the moment to ensure that education continues to roll on, that the students are not deprived of education, of the of the system that they were accustomed to, one
That
way
that
or the
that in
other.
itself is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Just to get
Isn't
things
it?
going.
Isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it? That's
Absolutely.
what uh,
Absolutely.
and remember this. Our educators, especially at the school level, were
Mhm.
not really used to online
Absolutely.
learning,
Yes.
right? They were not used to teaching long distance or remote. Now, some of us in the corporate sector have worked, remote. We have done
Mhm.
a lot of remote working. We have worked across time zones and all that. So that that kind of experience we have. But teachers in schools, where the immediacy was, a prized asset. The children went to school. There was a grouping. They played with each other. They met teachers. They talked to them. They clarified doubts. That kind of disappeared overnight.
Absolutely. Yes.
When the lockdown happened, it happened on March 25th. It was
Mhm.
like a guillotine, done. And then there's been a lot of scrambling to cope with it. I'm filled with admiration with how our school teachers especially have gone about and, kept the students engaged. They, and remember, in schools, the curriculum, the syllabus is a matter of life and death, actually. You
Mhm.
know, you cannot leave it to the students. They say
Absolutely.
the syllabus must be completed,
Mhm.
and they have stuck to it. So, let's tip our hats to our teachers, educators in all fields for the tremendous job they have done. They have been good, but at the same time, it shows a lot of value of technology, Rajiv. You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that it has become so easy to connect with multiple people. It's been so easy for you and I to connect over here and speak like this.
Right.
Uh, Technology has made it easy. Technological developments have made it easy, and the commitment of our teachers. I think they deserve a salute, and we need
Mhm.
to give it to them.
Now, since you've been in government and with your current exposure as well, now
Yeah.
exactly what you just said, this regarding the bandwidth and the technology, how are we doing in the remote areas? Are we able to of course, I mean it's silly to ask that whether we are meeting the same grade as we are in Kolkata or Bhubaneswar, but how are we doing in terms of technology, and are we able to cope with the challenge in these remote areas fairly?
Sadly,
Hmm.
like I said, we were not prepared for this.
Right,
Our remote areas, the digital penetration is not very high.
right.
Maybe it's there in terms of a mobile phone.
Hmm.
90% of India now owns a mobile phone, and so that part is given.
Hmm.
But for students, say, who's studying in a government school, who's
Yes.
studying in a small rural school,
Hmm.
to take part in a digital classroom, I think there are a number of stories that we are reading in the media, Rajiv, about
Yes.
how this is not working out as well.
Hmm.
And that is an area of improvement. That
Hmm.
is not a fault of either the student or the school system in the rural areas.
Absolutely.
It's actually, underpreparedness for something like this. We all were.
Right.
It's though those are resource starved areas. You
R-
know, I have worked in my career in places like, say, Rai Bareli in UP.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
uh, very backward. I have
Right.
worked in Srikakulam in Andhra Pradesh,
Right.
extremely backward, one of the most backward, two of the
Hmm.
most backward districts in the country. And there, let alone having digital education, you know,
Hmm.
having safe delivery during a pregnancy
Hmm.
is a matter of great achievement.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
so to expect that this kind of education can happen in the rural areas is unrealistic. What this pandemic does is gives us an idea that we must prepare for something like this, and that I think is the greater learning for the rural areas. It's not very good out there. I hope
Mm.
some coping mechanism will happen for government schools and rural schools in general.
Right. And I think we are great learners, and I'm sure we will learn from this experience, and the government and all the the stakeholders will get into the act.
Yeah.
Hence, yeah, right. Now, do you think the professional you mentioned about people like you and me who are more tuned to a corporate life, and I for one is I nowadays call myself kind of a sideline educator. So uh, so I've managed to cope with this the technology requirement better than many others, or my colleagues who are purely into academics maybe. uh, do you think the stakeholders in professional education, they have done a better job compared to maybe the conventional, the primary, secondary, the government education and all? Do you think they've done a better job?
Well, before I
Or
answer
was it,
that,
or,
let
or,
me.
or, or if I just kind of twist the question, is it does the scope over there, help us leverage technology better? Like this encounter between Rajib Kumar and Simanta Mohanty can feed into, a management a class very easily. You're right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned about the parallels between us. The parallels have happened because I have modeled quite a bit of my career on you. I've learned from you. Your
Oh, that's honor.
transference between academics, your interest in academics and the
That's
corporate sector. So that has
I'm
helped me a
humbled,
lot.
humbled. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's there. I don't know whether I told you that, but it's there. So I follow my peers fairly closely. Well, Rajib, it's there. Say in XUB, the major school is XIMB,
Right.
or you go to IIM Calcutta. They are far better equipped in terms of technology, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of student presence. By student presence, I just don't mean, the strength, but also the student's ability to cope with complex situations.
Right.
The student presence is also very good in professional institutions. And, they also prepare very well for this. If there's a crisis, the management fundas are all out, and they say, they break it down into small pieces and say, let's tackle it one by one. For example, in XUB, one of the things they did was they told all the professors to take an online course from
Right.
Coursera or, edX or something like that. And,
Mm.
you take an online course to see how a teacher teaches in this, in these online programs,
Mhm.
in this distance education program. So, or what you call the MOOCs. Um, so, the preparation is very good. They
Mhm.
know how to leverage technology. They know how to leverage their infrastructure,
Right.
and they have got a lot of advantage. And that is where I think, in comparison to the school educators, since they have had such a major headway, uh, I think the school teachers have done so far, so well,
Okay. Great.
because they didn't have all this, learning
Mhm.
behind them, but they have
Mhm.
still done, very well.
Mhm.
They have coped with the technological demands. They have learned how Zoom works,
Right.
how other digital connectivity systems work. They
Mhm.
have done so well. So professional education institutions always have had an advantage, and they are leveraging it now. Good for them. Good for us
Right.
also.
Right. Now, on a lighter note, I mean, you've been involved in the IT sector with this, employee parent program. How would you, yeah, you got my question. How would you replicate this year with the students and parents? All kind of funny stories coming in of parents' involvement in this process. Yeah.
So let me tell you something which I read in today's Times of India. It's there as a news item that psychologists are warning that this long-term confinement at home is
Yes.
not good for the psychosocial development of children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
They have said that it is especially between ages of 6 to 12 that children need to meet with their peers
Hmm.
to model their values in life, to, to, to check how they're going to grow and what are their values going to be, how the interpersonal relationships develop around this stage. So in the long term, it is going to cause mental health issues. It's going
Right.
to cause a strain on the mental health of children.
Mhm.
So I'm sure schools everywhere should take note of this. In
Mm.
some ways, if they can start classes with all the norms being observed, I know it's a very delicate issue.
Yes.
By
Yes.
September, October, it would be good because prolonged confinement at home for children is not good for them at all.
Right.
Let me tell you, I feel the stress 3, 4 months.
Absolutely.
A
Absolutely.
lot of adults are also feeling this.
Yes.
So it's there. Uh, when it comes to parental engagement, Rajiv, it's happening. One of the things that is happening, I saw a video recently of a parent talking about how teachers, when they are teaching, are
Mhm.
not just exposed to their students, but also to their parents. A lot of
Right.
people observe them teaching,
Yes.
and so all the issues come up like what horrible pronunciation, you know, and all those issues come up. So there was a parent, there was a surgeon who had created a video about this. But in this, I think one of the things that schools are doing, and or if they're not doing, they should start doing it. Start engaging the parents online very quickly.
Yes. Yes.
Have the parent teachers meeting online very very
Absolutely.
quickly,
Yes. Yes.
as often as possible,
Right.
right? With all the teachers, bring all the concerns out. Parents have every right to be concerned about what is happening in the education area with their children, and bring all the concerns out. And 90% of your battle is won with parents, with other guardians, with other stakeholders. The
Right.
more transparent you are, the better it is for everybody.
Right. Okay. One small question. I mean, before we, get into the final question. And this question is, I don't know whether it's very important, but it could become important at some point, and that
Anything
is
you ask is important. Go ahead. Yeah.
and
Tell me.
we are going through COVID-19, and there's already there's allegations and criticisms of mismanagement, etc. People are saying the marks have been just showered upon students when they don't actually deserve it, because just to get out of the situation. Now, let's say 5 years hence, would these guys who pass out at this stage, would they be ridiculed by their peers, or maybe even their recruiters who say, oh, you passed in this year, no wonder you got so much. Okay, I mean, so do you think that happening? I mean, I know, I mean, it's not a very serious issue at this stage, but who knows? Mm, mm,
No, you're absolutely right. You are looking into the future, and you are building this scenario.
mhm.
Rajiv, it's when I saw the question, I realized how important it was. The fact is, if 5 years from now I were to meet a student passing out of this phase with
Mhm.
very high marks, uh, what I would ask is about this phase itself, how that student coped,
Right.
what happened, and how did the online education go. I would be respectful of the fact that the student has gone through a very complex situation.
Right.
The
Right.
marks have never made any difference after a certain stage, Rajiv.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, do you agree with me? I think
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
in most of the jobs, IBM never wanted to see my marks. Wipro never wanted to see my marks. Dr. Reddy's did not. XUB also,
Right.
an academic institution, did not want to see my marks. Marks do not matter after a while. What matters is if you have gone through this complex stage, I would like to understand what that child did to cope.
Right.
In
Right.
fact, that is what I would ask to, get this person on board,
Right.
hopefully not reject him, but understand his mind, his or her mind.
Right. Okay. One final question, Mr. Mohanty, and that is,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Call this Simant. Just Simant is fine. Fine. I mean, I don't know how to call you Mr. Kumar.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how? What is the greatest learning out of this? How are we going to shape and reshape ourselves on reflection?
That's a very tough question. That's a very tough question. In fact, there are so many learnings that right now I don't think we can even start to rank them. But for me, the greatest thing is that we are coping. We have adapted. We have, survived.
Yes.
Raju. Uh, we 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 are fighting for survival as an entire world. As one people, all over the world, we are fighting for survival, learning from each other, doing things. Uh, you know, there are some jokes floating about this thali bajao, which
Right.
our
Right.
prime minister did. But we saw that in Italy, we saw that in Spain, people
Absolutely.
celebrating their
Yes.
COVID warriors by playing the guitar, by singing songs, and our prime minister replicated it the way he would in our country
Mhm.
with our symbols, with our instruments. So we are learning from each other from around the world. We are
Right.
tracking each other. We are watching who is flattening the curve and how. We are holding up New Zealand as a beacon of hope.
Right.
I think it is, the greatest thing is we are together as one
Right.
world fighting one common enemy. This
Yes.
in our existence, I'm sure neither you have seen nor I have seen. The first time we
Absolutely.
are seeing.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, there are tremendous learnings, the resilience and the spirit of our COVID warriors, our doctors, our nurses,
Yes.
our police personnel on the streets,
Mhm.
our governments thinking up strategy,
Mhm.
how we are coping with lockdowns, how we
Mhm.
are managing online and distant work. All
Yes.
these are tremendous lessons. But the
Right.
greatest lesson is we are one as a community all over the world. We're
Uh,
truly a global village in
Absolutely.
this.
And I think, I mean, since you mentioned, I mean, on the silver lining has been that, our mortality rates, I mean, amazingly low. I mean,
In
this is
India,
touch
yes.
wood. I
Yeah,
mean,
touch it, touch it, touch
this
it.
is
India,
wonderful. I mean, and this is in
yeah,
itself a
absolutely.
case study, and I'm sure researchers are going to look into this area at some point.
Absolutely. There are
Yeah.
Europeans,
Yeah.
European friends who ask, how has India kept it this low?
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, so say part of it is the Indian immunity in
Yes.
general, but a lot,
Survival. 5,000 years.
but a lot of it is also some sensible decisions and
Yes,
some
I guess
sensible
so.
work by it. We are
Absolutely.
easy to criticize. We jump to criticism very quickly about how we do not obey social distancing norms and all that. Maybe a one-off episode has happened somewhere in some city, but the fact is, overall, I see a lot of people being very careful. Like I
Absolutely.
said, this battle, this war will be won by the individual. It will not
Absolutely.
be won by not by government or
Very
by
well.
vaccines.
Very well said. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Simanto,
Rajib. It was
Mr.
such a
Mohanty,
pleasure.
Simanta Da.
Yes, Simanta. Simanta is absolutely fine. So
Right.
thank you so much for having me over and having this stimulating discussion. And
Right.
I hope we will have an adda very quickly.
Surely, surely. Let's try and
Some of
organize an informal
Bengalis
adda.
India's
Absolutely.
yeah, joining in,
Surely,
and it
surely.
was
We'll
such a
do that.
pleasure.
We'll do that.
Right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
My
Yes.
best to you. My best.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
God bless.
Thank
Yeah.
you.